Hello everyone, my name is Tanya and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to talk about red light district in Tsarist Russia. If you're able to see me and hear me, please let me know in the chat. So we are going to start in a few minutes. I'm going to tell you a few words about myself and then also about the tour. So this is a very special presentation. I hope you're excited and thank you very much for your support in the chat. James, Robin, Marty, I'm really excited to see you on my tour. Uh, so, as many of you know, there are very popular red light districts tours all around the world, especially in cities like Amsterdam, Paris, and Moscow is not one of them. Like, we don't have this reputation, even in Russia. If you ask some people about this past, and actually, yeah, I think I have to say the word, prostitution. Most of the people will think about the 90s, and it was also an interesting period in our history, I mean, the 90s of the 20th century. But when it comes to Tsarist Russia, where this was, how it was, even locals don't know much. And it's not even easy to find the information on this topic. And during this talk, I'm going to tell you why. Uh, Please let me know in the comments if everything works smoothly. I don't see any pluses or minuses. So meanwhile, yes, so I'm going to talk about this past, how it appeared, how the red light district appeared in Russia, what this idea behind it, where it was, how things were organized, why it was one of the most dangerous districts in Moscow and actually in Russia, what kind of ladies worked for these brothels, what kind of categories of brothels we had, and how it all ended and what is happening there now. How do we know the information about it? What made it special in Russia? And if you have any questions, please let me know in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer them. And of course, during this tour, we will talk about Russian writers and Russian literature. As many of you know, I'm a big fan of Russian literature, Russian writers. So it's impossible for me to avoid this topic. And spoiler, this district is related to Anton Chekhov. So if you're a big fan of Chekhov, stay tuned. So we are going to talk about him in the context of Tsarist Russia and red light district. And I want to remind you that it's a deep supported tour. So it means that you can pay as much as you want, depending on how much you enjoy the tour or on any other reasons you want. You have links to my Buy Me a Coffee page or my PayPal, where you can just set any price for the tour you want. But your support is very, very important, because this way I can do open tours, for everyone, and I can stream them on my YouTube channel, and then you can watch and rewatch them anytime you want. So thank you all. I hope we are ready to start. I actually prepared a presentation for you today. So let me see. Yes, hope we can look at it. So if you can see it, please let me know. So on the first picture, I'm showing you Sukhrivka, the area that is near how the red light district that I'm going to talk about. And first and foremost, I just want to talk about the location of where it was in the context of Moscow. It's actually really close to the city center. Today, it would be like 25, 30 minutes on foot, maybe like 30, 35 minutes. I'm really happy. Yeah, I'm really happy that I learned something new, and now I'm able, to do presentations live, so I can just prepare some other tours with presentations. So what it was pretty much like two streets, and between them they were lanes. So all of these lanes were full of brothels and all this type of organizations, like they were taverns, There were bank houses, whorehouses, and all these places. Just a number, like out of 116 buildings in this area, approximately like 100 were of this kind of matter. So there were some other places that were not directly related to the red light district, but generally it was all around it. Like there was a huge, huge percentage. It was approximately like 90% or above 90%. It was just like two streets, and between them there were lanes. So it was all around it. So why it happens just in one specific place? We're going to talk about several reasons. There is one which is obvious, because the police medical community was nearby. But this is also even before this time, and we are talking about the mid 19th century. It's kind of like the criminal area with one of the markets. So this market was sort of like a flea market that was opened in the beginning of the 19th century. So there were many people like beggars, homeless, there were many robbers, and all types of categories of people. So they're all coming there, and this is, like slowly they were settling down all around in this area. So I'm going to show you another picture. So this is all really close to the area that we are talking about. You can see it on some other photos of how the life was organized, pretty much selling, things on the street, and generally the market was open on Sunday. So this is all, not just Tsarist Russia, but when we talk about the heyday of red light district, this is the mid 19th century till the beginning of the 20th century, and specifically till like 1908. So this is the photo. It's a postcard from 1911, so just a few years after. But on this photo, we can see like this old Moscow. So going back, also you can just feel the atmosphere. And one of the questions that people might have: why would we need this red light district in the city? Do you have any ideas? Like what pushed, the government to it? Meanwhile, while I'm waiting for your answers, please don't forget to press the button like if you're enjoying this video, because it's really, really helpful for YouTube algorithms. So more people will be able to watch this video, more people will be able to find this channel. Takes 1 second, costs nothing, but it will be a huge, huge support for me. So the answer is really simple: venereal diseases. So at some point, the government, and at some point, I mean, again, it's the mid 19th century, the government just decided kind of like to stop spreading of venereal diseases. And of course, it was considered that prostitution was one of the main causes. So then they decided, just let's organize it. Let's create the police medical committee, which means that we had the organization that would just give them a permission. So this means that prostitution was legalized in the mid 19th century, specifically in 1844. So this is the year when under Russian Empire was decided to fight the syphilis epidemic. It was the period of Nicholas I. So the authorities legalized it. This is actually sounds shocking for the majority of Russians. I do this tour, by the way, in Russian. Like, this is not the type of tour, to be honest, that tourists would take when they come to Moscow. I've never had actually a foreigner doing this as an in-person tour in Moscow, but among Russians, it is because quite popular, because people don't know much of this past, and it's really, really intriguing to see how it was, why it was. So yeah, again, so women had to, so the idea of it was that women had to undergo radical medical examinations, and it was organized at the Sretinska police station. And then to the way it was easier, for women, for brothels, and also for the police. All these brothels were around the same area. Pretty much they were close to this medical committee. So that's why how this red light district appeared. So it wasn't just, that someone decided. It was, kind of like in this way self organized. So that is, the year it all was all started, but the prime, again, the heyday would be more about the 60s and the 70s. So of course, they were. So this committee was tiny. So again, in order to facilitate its work, it was decided to issue permits for the opening of brothels in the area, so to speak, within like walking distance from this station. And then later on, we got the name of this area, Grachovka, which was more like the reference to the historical name of it. By the way, another question is like, okay, so we are talking about the mid 19th century. Was there any prostitution before that? Of course it was, as many people say, it's the oldest, profession in the world. But when did it appear in Russia? There is no right answer. We don't know the exact answer. But most of the historians believe it was probably under Peter the Great, with the because he was a big fan of the Netherlands, Holland. So apparently there were some ladies coming, from Europe, specifically from Holland. So they were bringing these traditions. This is, the story that you can read in, some article. But I have to tell you again, if you make a research, either in Russian or in English, you won't find this information on this topic. There was a joke in the Soviet Union that there was no sex in the Soviet Union. It's actually a later joke, but the idea is like it's not a type of thing that people would talk about openly. And in the Soviet Union, it wasn't even forbidden to make a research on these topics. And that's why we don't know about it. It was kind of all in the clandestine. And what is interesting, when we talk about it, we generally know about this area, what was happening, how it was happening, thanks to Russian writers. These days, I mean, with YouTube and, some other websites like OnlyFans, girls can write their blogs, can just share the, I don't know, share details about the profession. But back then it was impossible. And many of them were illiterate. They were coming from villages. So this is basically the main accounts that we have. There are also some police reports that we can rely on, especially like, statistics. So this is all how it looked like. And again, when we're talking about this area, these were, bank houses. So some girls were, living so they were just sleeping there. Some were sleeping in the morning, others during the day, the rest at night. So it wasn't, a very, very comfortable place. Of course, there were some expensive ones. So here, just showing like the size of Moscow in the area. And this is how the police committee looked like. So this is the place from where it all started. And one of the writers, Mikhail Voronov, who basically wrote about the area. But then if you read it, like, you can see that sometimes people, they really went deep into it, and sometimes specifically about Mikhail Voronov, they just had some mental health issues. Of course, many Russian writers referred to this topic, and the number one that you can recall would be for sure Fyodor Dostoevsky. So one of the books that I'm going to talk about I think next month will be Crime and Punishment. So Sophie in Crime and Punishment, or Sonia, she's probably the most well-known prostitute in Russian literature. Not even probably, but she's the best known. So we have Dostoevsky, Tolstoy also writes about it. But when we talk about this criminal districts, this kind of districts, the number one person is Vladimir Gilerovsky. If you watch my video on criminal Moscow, it's published on my YouTube channel. The area was called Hitrovka. That one is kind of similar, but it was still different. They were brothels or cheap brothels, but it still had a different atmosphere. So here is how Gilerovsky describes. He has a book called Moscow and Muscovites. I highly recommend you to read it if you are interested in the dark past of Moscow. I know that many people like true crime stories, criminal past of the cities. It's really fascinating, and these days it's also very popular among Muscovites. Like, these are the most popular tours because people are bored with some obvious tourist attractions like the Kremlin, Red Square, the Moscow metros. They all want to see Gilerovsky Moscow, and they went tours. So in terms of Grachovka, that was the name of the red light district. Before me lies one of the slums where the drunkards lured, stripped bare, and cast out onto wastelands. So this was an area of not only like for ladies, but also for like really alcoholics, all these categories of people, homeless, beggars. They were all also hiding in there. They were all living in the same place, and it was all kind of like connected. Also to work in this field. Ladies needed to drink. They also had some of the clients among them. Like, they were many categories of people. So going back to regulations, legalization brought yellow tickets. So that's how it looked like. This yellow ticket, if you remember, Crime and Punishment was actually mentioned there. It was mentioned by one of the characters, again, in terms of like Sonia, that my daughter took this yellow ticket, meaning, so it's not like the obvious, she became a prostitute. No, it's just like she got the yellow ticket. So you would have it. But it's also important to mention that it didn't really work well because, many girls, could just bribe policemen. It was sort of like a well-known fact. So it didn't really help much with venereal diseases. It helped in the way to regulate professions, so it became safer for women, because it was obviously a very dangerous job. I mean, even these days, if you watch videos of some girls talking about their experiences, they had all types of clients. So when it came to brothels, this organized registered brothels, the owner could be only a lady, not a man, mainly in the 30s, like around 35 years old. So this was specifically made to protect women so they wouldn't be treated badly. That was the idea. And again, like when you had this kind of unofficial work, you also had some sort of protection. Although there were girls that decided to work independently, so illegally, they also had like the name. I don't know how to translate it, but like independent women. That would be my translation. So they could work on the streets. I mean, the same situation happens now in some other countries. They still needed men, who Gilerovsky refers as cats. So this man would sort of also protect them in case, I don't know, your client doesn't want to pay you, he's too drunk, or there's some other cases that would appear, during the job. And it's important to say that there were not actually that many legal prostitutes. Again, it depends on how you look like, but was approximately 15,000 in the second half of the 19th century when we talk about it. And generally everything in one area, but I have to mention, of course, that they were all types. So it wasn't, there were some places close to this area, and then later on when it was kind of like too much, because the area became so dangerous that even police was scared to go there. So there was just numerous crimes, everything went unpunished. So at some point, police decided to decentralize prostitution, and people were already complaining about it. Hey, like, what is happening in there? Like, and it's still, close to the city center of Moscow. There were many writers, as I said, who were fascinated by it because for them it was like, oh, it was the real Moscow. These were real people. In this picture, I'm showing you how these ladies mainly looked like. It was extremely freelancers. Thank you, James. Thank you, James. Freelancers, yes. Well, freelancers, I mean, it's still kind of like, it means that you work for someone, so you just have a different employers. Entrepreneurs, maybe, I don't know. We can come up with the word. So when I talk about it, when I talk about these ladies, people might have very different images. For obvious reasons, it's extremely difficult to find photos. Why? Because it was still the early age of photography, and who would spend like money? I mean, photography was very difficult, expensive on taking pictures of prostitutes. This is one thing. But then, why would they allow? Even these days, you barely find women openly saying, "Hey, like I have this job. I'm a sex worker." It depends, but generally all around the world, like there's still stigmatization around it. This picture is actually not from Moscow, it's from Nizhny Novgorod. So it's one of the few that I was able to find. And it was taken by the police. Well, you can see that generally, this is not the image that many people might have, meaning that they look older. From my research, I'd say they're still probably in the 20s and 30s. It just shows you that their life was extremely, extremely hard. And like these days and back then, it was no secret that they needed alcohol or some other drugs to do their job. So it wasn't an easy life. And in terms of like understanding, here's another photo. This one I actually found from a book. This is also not Moscow, but again, it's pretty much the same. It's similar. I also prepared pictures of you from the elite, the high class girls. This is, if I'm not mistaken, is from Lithuania. So the best information I was able to find on this topic was from Baltic countries. There's a woman who's an expert in it, and she wrote a book. So it was on the cover of the book. But because in Baltic countries, they're able, to do more research, the information is open compared, to what it was and what it is in Russia. Still, a lot of stigmatization, and I can say that also as a tour guide that not that many people would like to go on a tour about it compared to like religion. This is just something like really bad. And so looking at these girls, it is quite obvious, like if you have already seen pictures of Russian people in the 20th century, that they're probably from a village, from small towns, and mainly were actually coming from small towns, from villages, to make money. It's important to mention in terms of like criminal districts, these kind of districts, that after the the end of serfdom, the serfdom was ceased in the Russian Empire, and serfdom is mainly considered as the Russian type of slavery. there are many people left with nothing. So they kind of like got freedom, but there were many, many issues behind it that I talked a lot about on my tours. The main point that people were coming to big cities like Moscow, St. Petersburg. By the way, in St. Petersburg, they also had the red light district because it was all around the same time. So um, they go there. I don't know. Maybe they went. That's a common story that you can hear. They went there to work um, as um, as a cleaning lady, but then they still had no rights, and then the owner would ask her for some special services, and she didn't have a place to refuse. By the way, in Crime and Punishment, so if we're reading it, you can also hear a similar story. Then a man, like it's about the main character, Raskolnikov's sister. So she works for a rich man who kind of like makes some moves. She actually rejects him, but then uh, the wife of that man spreads rumors that she's a terrible lady. She's I don't know, she's a prostitute and things like that. So you were in a disadvantaged position. Many of these ladies, they were educated. There was not much to do, and you couldn't go back home because of money, because well, nobody would accept you and things like that. So once you've already like went this way, you can just find a job in a brothel. There you have some other ladies, you have food, and then things like that. How much did they make? Of course, I mean, it's different money, different numbers. But well, if it was already like a high class brothel, that would be 5 rubles. Yeah, I have to say it in rubles and transfer it to dollars. So it's 5 rubles. So let's say it would start from 50, $60. This was per hour. This was, already starting like from good brothels. The cheap ones, they were like the ones on the streets. As we decided, freelancers could have like $3 to $5. That is more or less. I mean, if you look at the prices now, they will correlate. Yeah, in some places. Did some of the women play? They trade with the aristocracy. Yes, so we're getting to it. So I'm just talking about like general women, all categories. So they were also like various categories of whorehouses, brothels. So they were mainly 3 types. There were not that many expensive ones in the area because this area was known for um, criminal part of Moscow. The more expensive one were closer to the city center, because if you are rich, why would you go to this area with criminals? It wasn't very comfortable. It was more again for like some writers like Chekhov, so that could be interesting for them. This is some of the pictures of how it could look like. They had a hole, for girls to meet. So man would choose the lady he liked. Uh, and answering James' question and also referring to like some high class categories. So this would be mainly singers, so girls with the occupation. So these Gustav sisters were cabaret singers. So these were like known ones, and you can see the difference, by the way, between the pictures, like these ones and those that I showed you previously. I don't remember the list of the clients, but those that I'm showing you now, they would be uh, they would have like even clients from the royal family, the Romanov family. So this girl, she had a last name Knyazhikina. I believe it wasn't her real name. Knyaz, it means like a prince in Russian. So she was sort of like a princess. She was from Nizhny Novgorod, so I showed you a picture from Nizhny Novgorod. So she we don't know even the year the picture was taken, but it's probably in the beginning of the 20th century. So that is how they would look like. There is also some of the buildings. So many were wooden because it was cheaper, and Moscow was still a wooden place. If you want to read more on this topic, and if you want to just feel the atmosphere, I highly recommend you reading Anton Chekhov's A Nervous Breakdown. It's a short story. I think it's only 30 pages. This is a story about a man who is a student. I think he was a medical student, and then he goes to brothels in this area with his friends. And then he has a nervous breakdown because of everything that he sees. He feels really bad for these women. He wants to save them. I'm not going to tell you what happens at the end. You can read it yourself if you're interested. But it's quite interesting. I mean, it's Chekhov's vision. So already mentioned that actually Chekhov ended up living in this area, and he had several addresses. So this area was his Chekhov's first address in Moscow. He spent there approximately 6-7 years, or even more. Yeah, so Chekhov spent his first years in Moscow, 7 years. Yeah, 7 years to be exact. And then he moved, closer to the city center. And I want to share with you one of Chekhov's quotes on this area. What in all this nonsense that I now see can tempt a normal person, induce him to commit a terrible sin, to buy a living person for a ruble Russian money. So many Russian writers, Chekhov, another book is by Kuprin. It's also one of the biggest classics on this topic. It's called The Pit by Kuprin. And it's a lot about unfairness of life, how many of these women don't really have a choice, about the conditions, that um, everything around it doesn't have a soul, like how terrible it is to buy someone, to buy another person, and then you can do whatever you want. And then there is actually nothing behind these girls, meaning that you talk to them, and you don't really see any humanity, you don't see any soul, and soul is just in the center also, like Russian literature, Russian talks, that there's really a lot of philosophy behind it and how things were happening. But one of the main reasons also why this was all flourishing was poverty in village, the revolutionary upheaval, everything that was happening. And when it comes to the end of this era, it wasn't really the end. As I said, it's 1907, 1908, because the revolution was also one of the heydays. Why? When we have this chaotic moment, when people have nothing to eat, wars, revolutions, civil wars, make a lot of women choose this job. And I think one of the classics in this would be Waterloo Bridge with Vivian Lee. By the way, was Brezhnev's, one of the Soviet leaders' favorite movie. I also like Vivian Lee. I hope I didn't mispronounce it in English. In any case, I believe that many of you have watched it. So I'm going to write the names of the books in the chat, and yours break down. And then we will wrap it up, the story, and I will answer your questions. This is by Chekhov. And the second one is The Pit by Kuprin. In any case, you can text me or you can write in the comments under this video in case you just missed something or you have questions, and I will write the answer in the comments under this video. So I'm just going to show you some other photos. So this is also, from this area. There is some pictures of actually what is there now. That would be a good question, and how did it all ended. So there were complaints. Somehow, this area had some normal houses with an architect, and then with some other people who actually were fed up with it, and somehow they managed to sort of like push it away. So there's organizations would go to some areas, some other areas, but the problem was that it still had this bad reputation. And it was a common story, actually, not only for Moscow, but then for some other places, that many streets changed their names because nobody wanted to live in there. So they changed all the names of the streets. They were new places. It was cheaper. But now, this is probably not the best picture to show, but it's a really nice area with some cool cafes and shops, restaurants. I absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite areas. It's not, that popular or that trendy as some other places, but it's really great and lovely. And no one has any idea that they were brothels. There's no even a sign of it. Like, you don't have any information except for like some signs of Chekhov, but it's Chekhov, so it's different. So this is the market that we've seen in the beginning. Some other pictures to show. This was the first terrorist in Russia who assassinated Alexander II at the age of 25. So all this plot, all these terrorist organizations were all around this area because it was very easy to hide there. So just showing you some characters. And this is a beach near Red Square, near the Kremlin, with nudists. There is a movement in the 20s, shame go away. So I want to wrap the tour. This man, he was the leader of this organization. So when it comes to the Soviet Union, everything was, strict. And it's, if you look at women, if you look at the images of women, and even now, by the way, with deputies and everything, politicians, you're a worker, you're a communist, you work hard for the great future of your country, but then you're a woman. So it wasn't really sexualized, and it's a big topic on how it was and everything. But even in movies, in Soviet movies, again, it was kind of like a banned topic. And it seems like there wasn't anything, in the Soviet Union. So in the 20s, it was different. The 20s, it was still the time, the civil war was still 1920 time, when some of the organizations were flourishing. It's also shocking for many Russians to realize that we had this kind of organization. Again, look at this man, and I think some of the things speak for themselves. His smile, his vision. But I'd say it all existed, in my opinion. We just don't know that much because of we need research, we need the information. But I hope soon we will be able, to learn more, thanks to some memoirs, thanks to some documents, because in my opinion, it's interesting to learn any city, any history, any culture from different aspects, because our history, and I'm not talking about Russia, but world history, is not only about heroes, it's not only about presidents, it's not only about ministers, but it's also about people, and people can be different, and this is part of our culture, part of our history, and it's very important, in my opinion, to understand how it happened, what brought these people to this kind of life, how it was, how we can end it if we don't want to see it. But in my opinion, there is much more life in in this kind of neighborhoods, in this kind of districts, than in just one building that you can find a lot more information about. So thank you very much for watching me today. Thank you for staying with me. If you have any questions, please let me know in the chat or in the comments. And if you enjoyed the talk and you want to see more videos, I remind you that it's a tube supported tour. So you can make a contribution on Buy Me Coffee or PayPal as you want, depending on how you enjoy the talk. So this will help me to do more research, to prepare more presentations for you, and to organize more tours. So if you want to find more information about my upcoming tours, you can subscribe to me on Buy Me Coffee. The next will be Beyond Borders talk, and I'm also preparing some new ones. By the way, the day after tomorrow, I'm going to Tbilisi, to Georgia. So I'm also planning on doing tours about Tbilisi. I hope you're excited because I love Georgia, I love Tbilisi, Georgian cuisine. So there are many, many things to talk about. There are many Russians there. So this is also the place that we could talk about from different angles. I've been actually to Georgia twice, but it was 10 years ago. So it will be also interesting for me to compare and to share my thoughts with you. So thank you, Ronnie Lim. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Diane. Have a wonderful weekend. All the best. Take care. See you soon. The next tour, so I'm going to announce, I'm going to write a post on Buy Me Coffee, and I will write a special letter to all the members of Buy Me Coffee. We'll do it either today or tomorrow. Georgia, sorry. Yeah, I will announce it. I will announce it as I always do on Buy Me Coffee. I write posts. If you're subscribed, you will receive an email, and I will do on Facebook. So goodbye.